Hi, Mark. Good morning. Thanks for giving this wonderful time and thanks for accepting this invitation and accepting you to share your testimony and your experience with Jesus Christ. Thank you and welcome to the Encounter with Jesus.
Yes, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Before we jumping into the entire program, can you explain or can you tell us how little bit background about before coming to Jesus, how you came to Jesus Christ, how came to know about Jesus Christ?
Sure. So I was born in the United States in the state of Ohio. That's one of the northern Midwestern states. And I was blessed to be born into a Christian family. And my parents were Christians, my grandparents were Christians, even my great-grandparents were Christians, and almost all of my aunts and uncles were Christians. And so I was very blessed to be born into that background. My mother tells me that I first went to church when I was 8 days old. So
Wow.
I was born on a Saturday, and so that first Sunday, I was still in the hospital with my mother. But then the next Sunday, they took me to church, and I was in the nursery at church. And so growing up in a Christian home and going to church all the time, I learned about Jesus at a very young age. And so it was not something that I needed to be introduced to when I was older in life, like a lot of other people experience.
Yeah. So thanks. That's wonderful to know. And the next thing is like how when you realized God has selected you or chosen you and this experience of salvation in your life.
Yes, and so as I mentioned, um, I knew about God. I knew about Jesus from a very young age. I went to church all the time. My parents, went to church every Sunday. Later on, our church started midweek services, and we went to those too. We would go to special meetings, such as missionary reports or revival meetings. And so I heard the gospel many times as a young person. I also knew that salvation was to the individual. So I was not going to be saved because I grew up in a Christian family or that I went to church, but that I needed to make a decision. And so probably around the time I was, 8 or 9 years old, perhaps, I began to become increasingly concerned about my sin and about my salvation. It was also a turbulent time in the world. There are these cycles that we seem to go through in the world and in Christian life, where people become much more conscious and interested in the end times. And so this was in the late 1960s, and I began to be aware of some of this. So first of all, it was a time of conflict. The United States was involved in the Vietnam War. I knew, young men were being drafted into the war. Also in 1967, there was the 6 Days War in Israel. And I knew from the discussions that I had heard about the end times that Israel was going to be very involved in that. And also around that time, there was one of the first popular books about the end times, titled "The Late Great Planet Earth," had been published, and it became very popular. And even though I had not read it, at least at that time, I did later on. I overheard conversations about it, and sometimes my parents, if they would have visitors in the home, sometimes the discussion would turn to the end times, and the adults would discuss whether or not they would still be on earth when Jesus returned. And so, being aware of my sin and knowing that Jesus could come at any time, I begin to be fearful, I think, about being left behind. And so when I was 11 years old, this all came to a head when I spent a week at a Christian camp. And during that week, we memorized a lot of scripture. There was a daily teaching in the Word, and then every evening there was preaching, and that preaching was primarily gospel preaching, encouraging children to accept the Lord. And it was toward the end of that week that I couldn't resist any longer, and I responded to an invitation and came forward and confessed my belief in Christ. And I was also baptized that very evening in a lake at the camp.
Wow.
And so that's those are kind of the things that led to me deciding to follow Jesus.
Yeah, that's a very great and a very young age you come to know about the Christ, and there is unrest in the world, but you come to a peace giver. That's wonderful. Yeah, so you accepted Jesus Christ and you got baptized in the camp. And can you share about once you accepted Jesus Christ, the life transformation through Jesus Christ, the journey with Jesus Christ after that period?
Sure. Yes. So being a young child, you haven't had the opportunity to sin, I guess, as much as you might have as an adult. And so the visible transformation is probably not as great as you might expect it in an adult. But for me, first of all, there was the inward transformation, that fear of the end times, of being left behind if Jesus would come, or the fear of death, if I would die without Christ. That fear went away, and it actually percolated over to other areas of my life where I had been fearful, been perhaps fearful of severe weather, that a tornado might come and hit my home, or things like that. I became much less fearful of life events. Also, as a young child, the sin that you're mostly aware of is disobeying your parents, and so almost immediately I felt a greater desire to obey my parents. When they would ask me to do something, I was much more likely to do it without resistance, to do it with the right heart. There was also a greater desire to just simply do what was right. Things when nobody was looking, to treat people properly, to not take things from other people. And then I also noticed a growing willingness to help others, to put aside my own selfishness to help others, whether it be classmates at school, or again, my parents, if they would ask me to do a chore, I did it with much more willingness. One of the biggest transformations, people that know me probably question whether I ever really had a problem with this, but that was anger. As a child, I used to get very angry in certain situations. For example, when we were playing games, whether it would be an outside game, such as football, or an inside game such as a board game, if I was losing, I could get very angry, and sometimes I would even hit my brothers and sisters. And after coming to the Lord, I realized that that kind of behavior was wrong, and I was no longer an angry person after that. That was probably the biggest transformation in my life, and my guess is the only people that probably ever noticed it was me and my parents. But because I generally was not angry outside the home, but I was very often inside, and so freedom from fear, desire to do what's right, and overcoming anger was the biggest transformation that occurred as a child coming to Christ.
Yeah, it's good to know. Yeah, because that is the crucial age, teenage, and before entering in the teens, you accepted Jesus Christ, and you passed through your teenage in God's way. Okay.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Then once you enter into the professional life, what are the marvelous things happened, and it may still happening in your life through Jesus Christ? So from your career to till this date, how God led you in your journey. Can you please explain?
Yes. So, again, the way you define marvelous, I think I heard a preacher once say that sometimes you miss God working because you're looking for something spectacular, and so I can't say that I've had anything happen in my life that other people might call spectacular. I have never been healed from a great illness or anything like that, but there have been a few things that are clearly God working. The first thing, particularly growing up, was the way that by being in the Lord and following His ways, I was protected from many of Satan's lies and from sin. And so, for example, I have never had a desire to partake in alcohol or use drugs. Even when I was a young man in college, and people all around me were very involved in drinking alcohol and getting drunk on the weekends. I never had any desire to do that. Other sins such as gambling, I never had any desire to do that. I think I also had, it also gave me a lot of wisdom about money and the use of the money that God has given, that my desire to chase after things that money can buy, even though I do desire to own some things, I think I've always had a proper perspective there, that that the things that I own are temporary, and they are tools for living life on earth. And so my desire to chase after money and the things that they can buy, I've been protected from that. Another thing that has been very marvelous through the years is the peace within the family. And so, even as I mentioned, I grew up in a Christian home, and most of my family and extended family were Christians. And so when we would have large family gatherings, there was always peace. You often hear about families that where gatherings become violent because they start arguing. And that never happened within my family. I also made the wise choice to marry a Christian woman. And so I was never interested in dating people based, only on their looks. But I looked for a woman that had values and that was a follower of Christ. And so as a result, I was very blessed when Lisa came into my life. And then even then, as we had our family and our children grew up, we had peace within our family. And so we never had violence within our family. We handled conflict through talking. We learned how to work on problems, to talk through issues, and to gain and maintain peace within our home. And some other things has been the Lord guiding me, I think, through my career. So there, when I finished college, particularly grad school, Lisa and I were married before I finished my doctorate degree. And as I was finishing, we became very open to what the Lord would have us to do. And we reached a point where we were willing to do anything, even if it meant going to the mission field. The Lord did not call me to the mission field eventually, but called me into academia to become a teacher. And I did that for about 12 years. And then I felt like the Lord was leading me out again. And again, I went through a stage where I was seeking the Lord's will in terms of where I go, and was willing to go anywhere. And so again, the Lord did not call me into a life of missions again, but I moved out of an academic career into an industrial career as an engineer. And so that led to many great opportunities. One of which was being able to visit your nation of India, and that my many trips to India have been one of the pleasant memories that I have, from my career. And particularly my last trip to India, when I had an opportunity to visit with the brethren in Vijay's church over there, and even bring the word to them through an interpreter. That was an experience that I treasure. And again, a lot of people would look at that as just one of life's events, but I see it as one of the marvelous workings of the Lord.
Great. Praise Lord. Praise Lord. Yeah. Thank you, brother. So this video I may share with a couple of brothers, young brothers and sisters. Can you share something from your experience to the young brothers who are listening or watching this particular video? some kind of motivation about your journey with Jesus Christ, how that is great, that is important in every young brother and sister.
Yes. So I think my first statement would be that it is worth it to follow Jesus. Certainly, if you are currently living a life of sin or focused on self, it may be difficult to make that transition to give up ownership of your own life and to follow Jesus. But I can say without a doubt that that is worth it, because Jesus Jesus is our creator. He has created us as humans, and he has created us to have a relationship with him. And so so many people view the rules in the Bible as these rules that limit you and prevent you from having fun. But what they actually do is, as I've mentioned before, is that they give you peace. They give you a guidebook to follow in your life, to know what to do when times are difficult. And so it is worth it to follow Jesus. The peace that you have when you lean on Jesus relieves a lot of stress through your entire life. So rather than constantly striving to overcome difficulties by leaning on Jesus, much of that stress is lifted. And then the other piece I also spoke about earlier, and that's the peace with others, the peace that you can have within your family, with your colleagues at work, even strangers that you meet, will bring joy to you your entire life. And it just really makes life so much more meaningful when you can view your relationships with others through the context of being a child of Christ. Serving Jesus is rewarding on earth. It can, and it does, result in the sacrifice of time, of your own comforts, but sharing with others, giving money to support charitable organizations, doing the work of the Lord, all require a sacrifice. Yet there are rewards with seeing the way that you're able to impact others. And then, of course, by keeping your eye on the eventual goal, which is to be with Jesus forever in heaven. Jesus promises in his word. In fact, I made a note of it here. Mark 9:41. He says, "For whoever gives you a cup of water to drink in my name, because you belong to Christ, assuredly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward." And so, even simple acts that we do to help others, Christ knows of that, and it says in his word that we will be rewarded in heaven. And so, my message to other brothers and sisters, or even those that are do not know the Lord but are contemplating it, is that keeping your eye on the long term, the rewards before you, as well as the peace that you have with God and with others on earth, is all worth it. And it's worth any sacrifice that you may have to make on earth today. And I would definitely encourage people to follow Jesus.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for giving this wonderful opportunity to to talk to you and capture your testimony. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, you're very welcome.